I don't have an answer. I'm going to tell you that. It's above my head, way above my smarts.
Here's my camera.
She's on her soapbox.
The people that have been discussing this have been frustrating me to no end.
Got to take care of those opportunities and put out good finishes. We need some top 10s to kind of build that momentum.
Hi everyone, I'm News 5's Heather Williams. Welcome on to the Backstretch. This is kind of my ultimate week, right? Heather's dream week. If you don't know what's going on outside the racing world, and I mean, I get it, who could blame you? At the Bristol Motor Speedway, so still kind of in the racing world, they're going to play a Major League Baseball game this weekend. The Speedway Classic between the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Reds. It is poised to be the largest Major League Baseball crowd ever to see a game. They've already sold well over 85,000 tickets. When I was a young journalist, I used to go to the Cincinnati Reds AA affiliate games down in Chattanooga and watch the games while I listened to the race on the radio. A lot of Doug Rice in my ear during that time. And I used to always joke to my friends it would be even better if they could just run the cars around the warning track at the ballpark. Well, we're kind of getting that now. There won't actually be cars running around there, but a baseball field inside a racetrack. It's going to be really cool. Huge crowd, kind of my dream to be able to see something like that happen. And so I'm pretty excited about this weekend. Someone else who's really excited about this is our guest this week. You may or may not know this, but Austin Dillon, it's pretty widely reported out there, so I'm sure a lot of you have heard this. Austin Dillon played in the Little League World Series as a child growing up. Huge baseball fan, loves the Braves. Unfortunately, will not be able to come to the race this weekend because he's running the Xfinity Series race, but I still thought that he was the perfect person to talk to about the intersection of racing and baseball. And we'll get a little Iowa talk in there as well, or sort of a little preview to the upcoming races. But felt like Austin was really a perfect person to sit down with this week. And we actually did it in person, not on Zoom. So thankful for Austin and his time. Chris will stop by, and we will talk to Chris about the reason that Austin is not going to be able to come. He's in the Xfinity Series race because of Austin Hill and his being sat for a race because of an incident that happened at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway last week. We'll kind of talk about why this is different from some of the other incidents that happened in the past, and why Chris thinks it's important that Austin Hill, have to designate my Austins here, Austin Hill sit this one out and maybe use it as a time of reflection. We'll also talk about the big win for 2311 Racing and Bubba Wallace. Probably the biggest win for both in their NASCAR careers. Obviously, there's been maybe bigger moments for 2311. Tyler Reddick was the regular season champ last year, so that's probably a bigger moment. But singular races, I think this is easily the biggest race that 2311 has won. And they've got a lot of distractions going on with the lawsuit, and the way that they've been able to kind of overcome, I think is really impressive. And so Chris and I will talk about that. And of course, the obligatory preview of Iowa. Fun race. They are crazy about their NASCAR there. I'm glad that they're on the schedule. They've kind of been hanging on as a stopgap, but they keep cranking out the crowd, so they're holding on. So we'll talk about kind of the challenges that you have at Iowa. All right, let's get going. Joining us now is our crew chief, Chris Carrier, who is also the crew chief of the number 75 Food Country Truck in the Craftsman Truck Series. Serious? Let me start that again. Serious. 3, 2. Joining us now is our crew chief, Chris Carrier, who also is the crew chief of the number 75 Food Country Truck in the Craftsman Truck Series. Bubba Wallace breaks a 100-race winless streak and gets to kiss the bricks to celebrate picking up the win at Indianapolis. Yeah. Chris, how big was this win for Bubba and for 2311?
Huge, huge all the way around. I think if you watched him in his post-race interview, what I got out of it was he was just basically speechless. He didn't really know how to explain it because it was so big. Yes, it had been 100 races, and then he said, "How many races has it been?" He said, "0 now." So that, you know, and I, you know, good for him, good for his team. His crew chief is a good friend of mine, Charles DeKnight, that was in the truck series for a while with a couple of different teams, most recently the McAnally team, a 19 truck. He did a great job. He's an engineer, he's a young man getting better, smarter all the time, and now he's in a great place, and I'm really happy for him. That company has worked really hard, you know, to just keep on trying to get better and better and stronger and more capable of winning races. And you know, it's just, I don't know. I was real happy to see that happen, and at a huge race.
You could see the weight of the world come off of Bubba's shoulders.
Oh, yes.
Because even though he was having maybe statistically his best rate season of his career, he was comfortably, not solidly, but comfortably in the playoffs. He needed a win. He needed a win before the playoffs began, because both of his wins came on years he didn't qualify for the playoffs and after the playoffs began, to really kind of solidify himself as a playoff caliber driver.
I agree, and you know, I think he said he felt like there was a elephant that had got off of his chest or off of his shoulders when he crossed the start-finish line, and now he doesn't. That, you know, this time of year when you're in that spot where he and a couple other guys are, plus a couple, minus a couple from the cutoff line, and you know that, like, okay, there looks like there may be at least 1 or 2 that don't have wins that'll make it into the playoffs. At least it looks like that right now. Maybe, maybe not, but you still have that burden of, like, oh gosh, what happens if we have a really bad race? Right. What happens if I get knocked out on the first lap and finish dead last? They're also, the commentators talked about this toward the end of the race when the fuel mileage thing was such, you know, it was the elephant in the room for everybody, really. But, you know, they said, can he take this chance? Can he take the chance to run out of gas and finish 30th, you know, and take that points hit? Now, don't have to worry about it.
Right.
He's in.
And the other thing is that this is huge for 23XI. All the things that they have going on with the lawsuit against NASCAR. To be able to pick up a win as an open team and be in the playoffs now as an open team, Tyler Reddick is pretty comfortable in his points situation. So as an open, as an organization running as open teams, to have 2 of their 3 teams in the playoffs, and I don't think as a rookie anyone expected Riley Herbst to get in. No, so this makes it a very successful season for them in the midst of all this chaos around them.
I think it speaks bunches for all the people there, the drivers there for Bubba and for Tyler Reddick, and all the crew chiefs, the race engineers, the people, all the people down the line that work there, that you know, amongst all of this chaos that's been going on, and uncertainty and questions and, you know, back and forth, you know, it just has to be a big amount of pressure on them. And for all those people to stay focused enough to have 2 drivers in the playoffs and to win races with both teams and to win one of the crown jewels of the whole season, you know, you had to say, too, he didn't back into this thing either. No. He had a strong car. He had a 4-second lead before the last caution came out. And, you know, come on, this team deserved that win. I mean, just based on the fact that he held off Kyle Larson, one of the best restarters in the sport, one of the best drivers at Indianapolis statistically. Back-to-back overtime restarts. Twice. Yep. I mean, that says it all. Unbelievable, and he really did. It looked to me like he just didn't. He didn't break a sweat doing it. I mean, I'm sure he did break a sweat, but you know, it looked like he didn't have to strain. He wasn't on like the oh my good Lord, he's going to crash edge. He just got in front of him and drove off both times, and it was kind of easy. And like you say, man, that's Kyle Larson behind him. And Kyle Larson right now has got to be pretty hungry because he's had a little bit of dry spell, and you know, he's lost a little bit of his his glamour, his glossiness, and everything. And so he was wanting. I'm sure he would have loved to win the Brickyard. So anyway, a huge day for 2311. And for that whole organization, and for Bubba Wallace and his people, his family, his wife and family there after the race, I thought was great. So you know, I think a feel-good story myself. So we'll see. I think now he's in the playoffs. He can take a breath, at least for that, and he knows he's going to be in the first round. So anyway,
and he's pretty good in the first round. Last time he was there, he had bounced out of the first round. So.
Yep.
Austin Hill, we don't talk about the Xfinity Series very often, but I felt like we needed to talk about this because it presents kind of a new thing that NASCAR has done. Austin Hill is suspended from the Xfinity Series race this week at Iowa after he right rear hooked Eric Almirola at Indy in retaliation. As a result, not only does he miss this week's race, but he loses all of his playoff points he's gotten to this point and any playoff points he gets for the rest of the regular season. That's a new wrinkle, that suspensions that are not one of the exempt suspensions, like the birth of a child or an injury or whatever. Right. If you miss a race for any other reason, you lose all those points. Is this punishment fair, based on what Austin Hill did in the race?
I think it is. We had discussions, a couple guys at the shop last couple days, and this, that, and the other, and talked about it. And a couple people asked my opinion. I said, well, but before I knew about it, and I said, I think they're going to come down on him pretty heavy. This looked really ugly on TV. It was really ugly. It just didn't look ugly. It was ugly. Somebody could have got hurt pretty bad there.
Well, Eric said it was the hardest hit he took, even almost maybe as hard as the hit he took when he broke his neck at Kansas.
Yeah, and that's a pretty big statement. And Eric Almirola is a pretty highly respected driver, I think, in the entire NASCAR community. Drivers, car owners, crew chiefs, and NASCAR officials, you know, the people of NASCAR, they respect him. I think some that played into this is the fact that they know Eric is a pretty fair driver. He hasn't got a reputation of starting things that turn ugly.
On
the other hand, let's face it, Austin he's been in a lot of rumbles, and he's done some things that probably weren't the greatest decisions or choices, and this has been a little bit of a habit. And you know, you got to think about, okay, wait a minute now, I'm in the playoffs. He's won 3 races this year, 4 races,
right,
whatever
3.
it is.
I think it's 3.
He's won, right? Come on, he's a successful driver. He's in a successful car. He's had seasons of success in this series. He's a talented driver. He's a gas masher. He gives everything 100%. I think he lets his emotion get the best of him every now and then. He's not the only one now. So anyway, he let it get ahead of him, and I think NASCAR has to step in and say, look, we have got to set a precedent here. We've got to stop this big snowball going down the hill before it gets to be an avalanche. And we've got to let other people know that hey, we're not just sitting back and saying we're going to let everything go and just stay quiet. We're going to do something that's going to be a deterrent for somebody to do something like this again. I had somebody question me this morning about, well, didn't Austin Cindric do this back at COTA, I believe it was to
COTA.
Ty Dillon. Okay, and I don't remember, or I'm not even sure I saw all the particulars of it or knew of the particulars of it, but the only thing I said, well, maybe, I don't know the whole whatever led to that incident, but Austin Cindric is not a guy that has a reputation for wrecking people on purpose, nor starting fights. Now he has been in some incidents.
But the other thing is that the speeds at COTA are not the speeds at Indy.
No.
And he also sent them into a wall that didn't have a safer barrier.
That's true. It was on it was on the kind of the straightaway that there was more room and so on and so forth. I don't know, Heather. I think we could argue this thing till the end of time and keep bringing up this incident and that incident.
You know, and that brings me up to something that my mother always taught me. Fair does not mean equal, okay? Because you, as a child, you always say, well, Heidi, that's my sister's name, Heidi did this, she didn't get in trouble.
Yeah.
You are not Heidi. Austin
Austin's
Hill is not Austin Cindric.
No,
and
that's true.
Fair is not always equal.
Yeah, I think it really comes back to, you know, look, we've seen some conduct or some decisions made by Austin Hill that we thought were not that great, not very good decisions, not that good of behavior, not the type of things that we just want to let go. And maybe he's kind of sort of slid by easier and not had anything, you know, not had any repercussions a part of it that fit the crime. Punishment didn't fit the crime, but this time I think the punishments fit the crime. And I think that, you know, now other guys out there, before they turn left and right rear somebody into a wall, they're going to say, ugh, maybe I better not do that.
Yeah.
Maybe I better wait and let my temper cool down and then think about, okay, what's something, what can I do something else? Maybe I just need to meet him in the parking lot. Now, Austin Hill's a pretty big boy. You better bring some help.
Yeah, nobody wants to meet
Nobody
him in the
wants to do
parking
that.
lot.
So anyway, I agree with NASCAR on this one. I think that it fits, and I think we got to stop this kind of stuff from happening because, Heather, it's ugly, it's dangerous. And to be honest with you, I think from other people looking in, I think it makes our sport look bad.
I agree.
I think it makes our sport look bad, and I think now people will look and say, okay, the sanctioning body stepped in. They don't agree with this, and they give the guy a pretty big penalty. Does that end his season? No. He's in the playoffs. He could win a race, go on the next. It's all said and done.
Yeah.
So you know, it's not like...
It's harsh, but it's not, for lack of a better term, to use like a football term, it's not the death penalty.
It's not the death penalty.
So,
it's not the SMU death penalty
right.
from many years ago. So we'll see. He's got, listen, that guy's got a great race team behind him. He's a talented driver. He's a good driver experience. He's capable of winning. He's won championships before. So, you know, let's just go on and see what happens. The next time those two guys show up on the racetrack, I think they'll say, okay, we just need to race and quit thinking about that incident. It's been took care of. The decision's been made. Reset, go, race, see what happens.
We will see what happens. All right, NASCAR fans and the media, that would be me, I guess, and my friends, continue to debate how the sport should crown a champion. So, Chris, are you team playoff or are you team go back to a full season championship?
I don't think we need to go back to the old system. I do not think that. I think in this day and time, and I'm an old school guy, and I like those championship battles, and I remember some that were really, really good, and I had a lot of respect for the guys that won them, the drivers and the teams that won those championships. I don't think in this day of time, in this client of spectators, looking for sports entertainment, I don't think it would draw interest. I really don't. But I do think there should be maybe a little of an adjustment made for somebody who can do that. You know, maybe more than maybe the guy that wins a quote season-long points championship. Now, I don't have the answer. I'm going to tell you that it's above my head, way above my smarts. So, but I think there are people in NASCAR, probably people in the media, that probably could figure this out and say, okay, if there is a guy like that goes along and maybe doesn't win a race, but has top fives and top 10 finishes and finishes every race and is consistent, you know, that driver and that team has done something special, and they're the people with the most actual points. They're promised in. Now, is that already kind of part of it? I don't think so, but
here's the thing, and I literally put this in here to go on my own soapbox. All right, here's my camera.
She's on her soapbox.
The people that have been discussing this have been frustrating me to no end, because they keep saying, well, look, somebody can run away with the championship. You look at what's going on in the truck series, and the regular season championship is already wrapped up. Yes, it's true. But we forget how often the championship was decided before we got to the final race. We forget that you race different when you race for a full season championship as opposed to racing towards the playoffs. We forget that we gave away points like they were candy on Halloween. Races had like 385 points you can get in the race. Now you can get like 55, I think is the most you can get in one race. It's different. And even if you go back to a full season championship, it wouldn't even be the same championship that you saw 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I guess now, since we changed this, because we just decide points differently. It's not the same. And most of the people who are complaining about this championship and the way that we do it weren't around when we did it that way. They just weren't, people are saying, I've been a fan for 25 years. Yeah, so all you have ever known is the playoffs and the chase. It's not better. I know you romanticize about full season championships and that one time in Atlanta when Alan Kulwicki won the championship and it was so great and that year was amazing. But that was the exception, not the rule. Now, I do think that NASCAR has done a good thing by rotating the championship race around, because it keeps the team Penske from getting a lock hold on one racetrack and nobody else being able to win a championship. But I just needed to get on my soapbox. I needed to get that off my chest because I think the whole thing is ridiculous. Does the championship need tweaking? Yes. Do we need to go back to full season championships? No, we don't. No, it's not better. If it was better, why? And everybody says, well, F1 doesn't need gimmicks and whatever. I want you to look at the ratings, and I want you to tell me who's watching F1 and who's watching NASCAR. NASCAR is the #1 and #2 and #4 and #6 series in all of motorsports. Their AAA series, the truck series, Chris's series, gets higher ratings than IndyCar.
I agree. I will say this. I am old enough. I'm well old enough to have gone through some of those season-long points championship seasons that the Cup Series had, and the at that time it was called Busch Series had, and the stuff that Late Model Sportsman before the Busch Series had, and so on and so forth. But we'll talk about Cup racing. And I'll be honest with you, some of them were really boring. They had not even close to the amount of excitement or, I'm just going to say sports entertainment of what today's championship playoff system brings each year. I agree. I think it needs some tweaking. I would say if 3 or 4 of the top NASCAR executives were standing right here between us or around us or behind us or whatever, and you ask the question, I would say they would agree. I mean, they're looking at this, and you got to remember they're in a very competitive world when it comes to selling sports entertainment and trying to market sports entertainment. And there's a lot of things out there that people can watch and spend their time or spend their dollar on, and NASCAR's trying to make their product better, and the statistics don't lie. 1st, 2nd, and 4th is pretty good, and our system is not broken. Does it need, a little tweaking here and there, a little element here, a little element there? Sure, it will. But don't you think that F1 and IndyCar needs some tweaking?
Yeah.
Holy moly, people, come on.
They wish they had the numbers that the truck series had, especially IndyCar.
They would, especially what Formula One spins, those people would love to have the following that NASCAR Cup racing has for years. And I don't know. I think that sometimes we as human beings, we feel like, okay, whatever we got isn't good. Somebody else has got something better. That grass over there is always green.
Well, and there's so much nostalgia. There's so much nostalgia for the old school NASCAR, and I get it. It was a very romantic time. You know, the attendance was great, and the romanticism of that time, I completely understand. The characters were amazing, right? The Intimidator and Mark Martin and the Rainbow Warriors and all of that.
Right.
But just because the characters were better doesn't mean the plot was better.
No, and one other element to this too, I think you got to remember is that okay, when they had in the 70s, 80s, 90s, when they had the system that they had that you're talking about, they didn't have 16 competitive drivers and teams to put in a playoff system. They didn't have 12 that would have said, okay, we're going to, you know, I don't think they would have had close to that. I mean, if you'd have had a playoff back then and went to the racetrack, the 12th place guy 100 laps in would have been 3 laps down. So you had Richard Petty, you had Cale Yarborough, the Allisons, David Pearson, and so on. So depending on what area you're talking about, even into the 90s now, when things started booming and stuff started coming along, there still wasn't the amount of teams, the amount of drivers, the amount of teams that were actually able to be competitive at any time during the season, anywhere you went. You had a guy that could win here, you had a guy that could win there, but mostly it was when Jeff Gordon was there, it's Jeff Gordon and Earnhardt and a few, Rusty Wallace and a few more, and the rest of the guys, yeah, they could run in the top 10, they could run maybe in the top 5, but there wasn't the competition that there is now. I'm sorry. I mean,
it was completely different.
I lived through it in the Busch Series, and I didn't live through it in the Cup Series back then, but I watched it really close. And some of the things were, nostalgic is a good word. I wouldn't trade anything for it, but it's just like the teams of the NFL in the 60s, 70s, and 80s would not be competitive now.
No.
You know, it's just a different time, and a different time in history takes different circumstances. It takes different elements to make things work, and I think that, you know, I don't downgrade any series right now. If you love racing, you can turn the TV on, or you can go watch a race somewhere, and if you like auto racing, you can find something that will entertain you. Just like if you like football, you can find something that'll entertain you. I don't care. Yeah, I watched about half of an NFL women's team the other night. Yeah, that game. And I'm like, wait a minute. It took me, well, this was tackle.
Oh, it was tackle.
Yes, and the other night, it was on the other night, and I can't even remember what channel it was on, but I was thinking, what am I watching? And it was pretty good. But anyway, you know, we need to come off of, I guess, NASCAR and the whole NASCAR situation. We need to come off of them just a little bit and say, let's be thankful for what we got.
Let's move forward, not back. And then we got to move on, because I spent way too much time on the sort box. We're going to have to go through this last one quickly, but I'll just say let's move forward. So real quick, because we spent way too much time on the last topic. This week we go to the cornfields of Iowa. What can we expect from this Midwest?
You know, it's always, to me, it's a little bit of, I don't know. They redid the racetrack a little bit. It's an older racetrack that has been beaten up by weather a lot, and they repaved some, and they did this and did that in the corners, and it picked the speeds up a lot. But it's still an unpredictable racetrack, and I'm not sure about the tire durability. That's always a concern when you go to a place like this. There's going to be some teams that's going to hit the setup pretty good, and there's going to be some teams that miss it pretty bad. It'll be hot, and it'll be a pretty grueling race. It's going to be a good race. There'll be passing, and you just have to stay tuned and see what happens. It's a neat place out there, long way out there, but a lot of the drivers really love this track, so I think they'll be very racy.
So we're joined now by Austin Dillon. And Austin, I know that you're a baseball fan. We're getting ready for the Speedway Classic at Bristol Motor Speedway. You're a Braves fan?
Huge Braves fan.
How did you become a Braves fan?
My grandfather, his relationship with some of the players back in the day when I was a kid we actually flew up to Atlanta to watch a game and got to meet Bobby Cox. Ned Yost is a huge racing fan, an RCR fan. He actually spoke at one of our luncheons one time, and when he was the third base coach, Chipper Jones was there. I was a huge Rafael Furcal fan, who was the shortstop. That era of the Braves were my team. Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux, John Smoltz. I loved all those guys.
So people probably know you these days for either be in racing or your involvement now in bull riding, but you actually grew up playing baseball, right?
Yeah, no, playing baseball in Little League, and I loved it. It was pretty competitive and enjoyed going to the League World Series.
What was that experience like?
It was awesome. My family's always known for racing and going to the racetrack, and getting my grandfather up to Williamsport, Pennsylvania to watch me as a 12-year-old play second base. It was awesome winning states, regionals, and going and being on ESPN, because Harold Reynolds was my guy growing up, so getting interviewed by him in Williamsport was cool.
So you've been in Bristol a million times, grew up going to that racetrack, I'm sure. For folks that have never been to Bristol, what's their first experience of like walking in either through the grandstand or the tunnel? What's that going to be like for them?
Well, Bristol is, I call it the last Gladiator Dome. There's nothing like it. The experience you have walking into that stadium it's epic. And as a driver, there's no other place like it. You're just looking up at the top of these stands, and it's electric. It's an electric factory.
What do you think it's going to be like for baseball?
For baseball, I think it's going to be the same thing. This unbelievable looking, you got the green monster out in Boston, but this is going to be a different type of monster. You're going to be, hopefully these guys are hitting bombs outside of the racetrack and going in the stands. I mean, that arena is going to be cool to see as a baseball stadium.
So this is going to be a great opportunity, crossover-wise, for fans of both sports to kind of maybe test drive. As someone who is a fan of both sports, what do you think is the advantage of doing something like this?
Well, it's cool. Anytime you can cross over two different worlds. I know they had the football game there. I watched it. I'm going to be tuned into this baseball game because not only are they playing at Bristol Speedway, a place I have a ton of experience at, but the Braves are playing. So I'll be tuned in, watching and cheering them on.
For you as a driver, how bad would you like to get a chance to go there? I know you guys are like in Iowa that week.
Yeah, Iowa Speedway that weekend. It's going to be tough to fly back and forth. I think they were talking about trying to put a plane together to go, but I'll probably be focused at the track and just be tuned in and watch on the TV.
So, Braves, Reds. Do you have I feel like it's a rivalry just because where we're located in Bristol. It's kind of halfway between both. But
yeah.
As a Braves fan, what do you think of the Reds? Like, do you think of the Reds, or are you more focused on like the Phillies, the Mets?
I'm always focused on the Phillies and the Mets, the division rivalries. But I think the Reds are a good team right now. They got some hot players, and I'm hoping that the Braves can come in and get something going. We need a splash. We need to win a big game, and I think they're going to have the home field advantage for sure. I bet there'll be more Braves fans than Reds.
So what about you going forward? We've got just a few races left until the playoffs. Some good tracks for you coming up. How do you feel going into this kind of final stretch?
Yeah, Indy, Iowa, Richmond, all places I feel like we can do really well at, and then Daytona as well. So we've got some opportunities ahead of us. We've got to take care of those opportunities and put out good finishes. We need some top 10s to kind of build that momentum.
For my final thought, I want to talk about attendance. A lot was made of the crowd at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. It's kind of the same things you hear a lot about Bristol, and for the same reasons. I've beat this drum before, but I feel like in the shadow of what happened to Indy, it bears repeating. Those facilities, Indy, Bristol, Daytona, are huge. They're massive, over 100,000 people. Not too many events get 100,000 people anymore. Yes, the Indianapolis 500 gets huge crowds, but that's their marquee event. The Daytona 500 gets huge crowds in NASCAR. If they ran Indy cars at Daytona, it would probably not fill that place. Let's be honest. They don't really fill anywhere other than the Brickyard. Crowd was a little disappointing, I'm not going to lie, but a venue that holds 200,000 people, if there are 80,000 people in that facility, it looks empty If there were 80,000 people in Bristol, it looks empty. They're going to have 85,000 people plus, 90,000 people plus for the Speedway Classic this weekend at Bristol. And they're going to have half, well, they're not, it's not quite half. They're going to have about a quarter to a third of the track blocked off because you wouldn't be able to see the game anyway. That's going to be the biggest crowd to ever watch a baseball game. 80,000 people, 60,000 people, that is nothing to sneeze about. And these tracks that sell out, and some of these tracks don't even sell out, but North Wilkesboro, Martinsville, those tracks hold 20. So, yes, it's not sold out, but there's still massive crowds, way bigger than some of these crowds that people look on TV and go, ooh, they sold out. That's amazing. They sold out at a half to a third of what Indianapolis and Bristol are selling in tickets. So, I know math is hard. I'm terrible at math. I cannot balance a checkbook. I'm really not good at it. But that's the kind of math even I can understand. And I think that if you stop and really stop judging by your emotions and judge by what's actually happening, I think you will see that these crowds are still good. They aren't what they were what they once were. And I've said this from time to time too. I think that NASCAR tracks really got greedy in how big they made their tracks. Like they made them too big. And I know Indianapolis is not a NASCAR track, but there are several tracks that have taken seats out. Daytona's taken seats out. Bristol has taken seats out because they're too big. But that being said, the crowds for today's society and the way we attend games and the way that we watch games, the crowds are fine. Like they're nothing to sneeze about. And I want people to just kind of cut Indy a break. Like the crowd was fine. The racing was fine. Not every race needs to be a photo finish. If every race was a photo finish, the other races would not be special. So now I'm kind of getting on a different tangent, but I just want to give a little shout out, a little slow your roll, slow your horses about the Indy crowd. Yes, it was disappointing, but it's still more than most tracks get in a weekend. Thanks for joining us on the Backstretch. We'll see you next week.